To my right, I have Aaron Keller, founder of Capsule Design, Mark Peterson, owner and president of M.A. Peterson, Scott Nelson, CTO of Logic PD, and then Rick Polk, president and CEO of Whiteboard Product Solutions. So anyway, why doesn't we give everybody a moment here to have them tell us about their firm, their background, and we'll start with you, Aaron.
All right. Can everyone hear me? I have a design firm. Started it 15 years ago. This is an incredible community to do that in, and so we've been very fortunate as an entrepreneur and a problem solver and taking on interesting challenges in this community as well as nationally. We've most noted for the rebrand of Byerly's 15 years ago or 14 years ago, and more currently the rebrand of Thrivent, and the really interesting one, the Minnesota Orchestra. As you probably saw stuff about the Minnesota Orchestra in the news. That was fun. Yeah. Schuler Shoes, and then more recently things are clients like Patagonia, The Honest Company, so both locally, nationally, startup to billion-dollar companies. It really doesn't matter to us. We're looking for interesting problems to solve. So that's me, that's us.
Great, thanks, Aaron. Mark?
Mark Peterson. Well, it's nice to see everybody, and appreciate the opportunity to chat today, Rick. We're a design, build, remodeling firm. We've been in business for 36 years. We do everything from small to large remodeling projects and new homes. We also have a cabinet manufacturing business. We also manufacture millwork as well, and landscape homes. So we kind of have a comprehensive solution for your home needs, whether it be a small project to a large project from the remodeling end of things, or all the way up to a new home or a vacation home. We also do some work out of state and outstate, and we've also done a project out of the country. So we've got a number of different ways that we apply creative thought to our to how we help you understand your home and live in it. So that's what we do.
Great, thank you. Scott?
Yeah, I'm Scott Nelson. I'm at Logic PD. Logic PD will be 55 years old this September. So long and storied history. Started with General Mills. Two industrial designers came out of General Mills, started the company. I was actually a customer there when I was at Honeywell. Came to them for ID and ME help from Honeywell, and then joined the company in 2000. It's a lot of fun. We do design, development, manufacturing, and in today's world where everything's connected, we also do the cloud fulfillment part. So we have a complete kind of one-stop shop, similar, Mark and I were talking about completing, the circle of a product or the circle of an experience. That's kind of what we do. So we have probably 75 customers at a time. We're churning 50 of them turnover, about every 3 months in terms of the design and development parts of things. So we see a lot of different things for creativity and innovation. So excited about today's conversation.
Great, thanks, Scott. Rick?
Yeah, I'm Rick Polk. I'm the founder of Whiteboard Product Solutions. Whiteboard is a full-service product development company. We are in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. We service a wide range of consumer, medical, and industrial product companies. And our secret sauce is based on our people and our place and our process and how all that works together to be collaborative, and then finding great clients to work for. And as Aaron was saying, Minneapolis is a great place to be for a design firm. There's so many different varieties of clients with different needs, and there's the different seasons and all the different things that inspire us to come up with new and innovative products.
Mm-hmm. Great, thanks, Rick. Rick, you mentioned your process, so why don't we start on the far end and we'll just kind of work our way back. Can you spend a few minutes and describe the creative process that your firm works with, and maybe give some examples of some recent projects that you've worked on?
No, I can't. That would take too long. No, I can sum it up a little bit. The creative process to me, or it's a journey, and it's a roadmap that you have to follow. And at the beginning, it starts with clear understanding and definition. And at the beginning of a process, you need to give permission to listen, discuss, challenge, before you can define. And we've even added the word ideate. So even before we're defining, we're already starting to ideate. And that leads to more discussion, more challenging, which then leads to a good definition. And then once the definition and the goals are established, then you can work towards the creative part at the beginning, really give people permission for good and bad ideas to blend together to inspire concepts that then can move forward into a phase we call going from could be to should be, and should be is where the innovation happens. We try to get down to the one solution that meets all the realities that we've found along the way. Then we can present that one solution to the end user and the person who has to make the purchasing decision. And once they commit to that being a good idea, then we can do the final refinement, engineering, design, and release for production. And hopefully that leads to return on an investment for our clients. So we try to do that process as thoroughly and as quickly as possible to get to a return on investment as soon as possible.
Great, thank you. Again, kind of working our way back this direction. Scott, you want to chime in?
Yeah. So because we kind of go all the way through the process and we do a lot of medical development, we've traditionally been, our process has traditionally been pretty stage gated. But more recently, the connectivity and the pace of technology has kind of changed us to a more agile process. You combine that with our experience and our history of design. We were founded by designers. We've always had a very, very strong design group who keeps our engineers. I tell our engineers that you may build things, but the designers tell you what to build, right? They tell you how to build something that somebody will use. That's the most important part. So we have a very multidisciplinary process, and so we use what a lot of you may have read, Eric Ries, his book Lean Startup, and it has this three-step spin, build, test, learn, build, test, learn, build, test, learn. And you do that as fast as every 30 days. And we sometimes are doing that as fast as 30 days, spinning electronics and everything else. And from a creativity and innovation process, the key to build, test, learn is you test with users and you get their input into the process as well as everybody else's input. So the cycle of input, and it's very important in a multidisciplinary environment to have kind of a completion all the way through that build step for us, and gets everybody's input, because as Rick said, you have to, designers are really, really good listeners, and if you're going to do something well, you have to listen to not only your team, but you got to listen carefully to the users who will give you. Many times they won't tell you what they like and don't like. You'll have to watch it or see it or record it, and that a lot of the creativity comes in thinking about problems that you see in that process. The innovation comes in identifying those unstated needs that give you the opportunity to solve something that other people haven't solved. You asked us about examples,
sure.
Recent examples. I have a favorite example right now. We've worked for about 10 years, 12 years now. 13 maybe, with a gentleman, local gentleman who from Wisconsin, he was the first person to put RFID into animals, and so we've tagged fish, cows, pigs, chickens ourselves, just about everything, with RFID tags. And more recently, when he was out in the field working in tags, he came across he and some veterinary partners. He's a veterinarian. They came across the idea that they could take their cognitive diagnostic capabilities, that they had the ability in their heads, that they could take a sound and turn it into a diagnostic number, basically. And they came to us with two guys in cowboy boots and hands like rope. They work in the field with cattle all the time, and asked us, could we translate this into a diagnostic stethoscope? And so we get our team together, we listen to them, and we took the data they had already captured, the results they had created, and we started building. And as soon as we'd build something, we literally bought a stethoscope, cut it all up, reprogrammed it, sent it right back out into the field, and they start spinning with it. So we did this agile process. And today, they have over 100 animal hospitals running. About 500 of these. We capture 800 patients a day, diagnostic patients a day, and they're pretty much revolutionizing the way that these people take care of herds. The innovation, the creativity was, can I take this idea and put it into a scope? The innovation was really that they went to a group of people, the stockyards, that typically take care of the herd, and they are teaching them to take care of the individuals. It's the opposite of what we do. We're going the other way in human health right now. We take care of individuals, and we're going to population health. They're going the other way. And it's been really innovation, a big innovation, and is growing very, very rapidly now. And we've been really happy to be a part of that all the way through capturing the data, doing the big data, and everything else that is done there. So that was our recent example.
Well, that's a good one. Thank you. Thank you. Mark?
I want to see a show of hands. How many people like mosquitoes? I don't think I see any up there, Rick. Well, I had a client of mine who had a deck that was off the back of their house, and they wanted to use it, and they had this incredibly gorgeous view. And they could never go out there at night and use it, and they wanted to have a deck that could be used, you know, so let's put a screen porch on. And I said, well, yeah, we can do that, but your typical screen porch is going to make your kitchen really, really dark. So if you've got a dark kitchen and you've got this screen porch, you're looking out, you're not really seeing the view. You know, it's really compromising the rest of your house. So we started talking through this issue that we were faced with here. They wanted to use their outside. They wanted to be able to enjoy the outdoors without getting eaten alive. So we came up with an idea where we were going to do a trellis room with a screen roof. So the screen roof would be removed in the wintertime, and what happened as a result of this was we built this project, we put in the screen room with the screen roof, and they invited us out for dinner, my wife and I, and we went out there and we were sitting on this porch, and they said, you know, I got to tell you something. When my family is here, everybody's on the screen porch, and everybody gets to enjoy each other. Whereas before, the kids were on this side of the house or on that side of the house. My wife was in here, I was out there, but now we've got this space that speaks to our hearts and it speaks to our souls. And it puts us together so that now our house has more meaning. Now I can have those conversations with people that are important to me. When we're here, my wife and I were out there, we're just sitting down and we're looking up and we're like going, man, there's the stars versus nice tongue and groove, you know, and in the kitchen, all the light was still coming in. So the question that they asked was, we really need to get out of the mosquitoes and we want a screen porch. And the typical answer would be, well, let's put on a screen porch, right? And 99 people out of 100 would probably go in that same direction. But we had to take them through a process where they could feel comfortable purchasing something that wasn't familiar to them. And we as human beings typically tend to default to the familiar, don't we? If we're living in our home, we normally, when you wake up in the morning, where do you usually go? Everybody has a path, right? Yeah. You walk through the same path almost every day, pretty much every day. If you're looking out your back window, you see what you see. So how do you get beyond that? How do you get to the point where you can see something that is outside of your experience and you see something that is meaningful to you, but ultimately at the end of the day, it has to speak to your heart. Because people aren't buying things just because it's new. Nobody wants something new. They want something that's meaningful, something that's going to help them enjoy their lives more, something that's going to bring more value to their property, more value to their existence in the space. I had another client who said we'd done a large project for them, and they had purchased a condominium in Grand Cayman. And they said, you know, Mark, what are we going to do? We got to remodel this thing. It was going to be, you know, at least $200,000 worth of work. And I said, we'll do it. And he says, well, how are you going to do that? And I says, I have absolutely no idea. So there's confidence for you, huh? But we'll figure it out. We're going to figure this thing out together. And I said, but I got to see it. I said, when are you going to be down there? And they said, well, we're going to be down there at such and such a time. And my family just so happened to have a trip planned where we were going to be stopping at Cayman. So they picked us up and they went out there and we looked at it and it was fun. I gave them some ideas. They loved the ideas. But their fears were, I don't want to work with somebody I don't know, especially in a different country. You know, and we had to turn the job 9 weeks, Cayman time. And so, you know, we got this $200,000 project. We have to turn it in 9 weeks. Because they had renters coming in. So now we've got the gun to our heads. We have to do this. We have to figure out how we're going to build this project in Grand Cayman. We've never worked there before. How are we going to apply the creative principles that we have to help them get something that they want and solve their problem, but also have that end result speak to their hearts? If it doesn't speak to your heart, it's just not worth buying it, if you ask me. You know, there has to be some component of everything you buy that speaks to your hearts. We all don't buy the same car. You know, we all have something that appeals to us, and the same thing's true in our homes. So we finished the project 8 weeks Cayman time, and they were ready to go. And it was a lot of fun, and we learned a lot, and we were able to satisfy their needs. So there is a process that you can go through creatively that I think applies across all industries. And the first is you have to mine the information. You have to understand what people are looking for. And you have to ask the right questions. And you can only get that done if you have a guide, just like you're going fishing. You know, you don't just go and throw your line in the water wherever. You want a guide to show you, well, hey, you know, the fish kind of congregate here in the morning. The afternoon, you may as well not even fish. You may as well go eat pie or drink beer or something. I don't know what. But, you know, there's certain things you have to do. So if you understand what the issues are, and you get people explaining what it is they're looking for, and you ask probing questions with experience and talent, you're going to find that the solution will reveal itself. And as you continue with that, in our approach, what we do is we have interactive sketching meetings. So I don't do my design in a room, you know, without my clients in it. We actually sketch together. And what I can do with that is they can understand what I'm thinking, and I can explain why I'm thinking what I'm doing. And then as a result, then they start seeing their challenge from someone else's perspective, which then allows us and them to mine something that is hidden within them. It's hidden inside, and it comes to the surface. And now it's our ideas that are moving forward. And when you do that, you've truly created magic. Now you've got something that is a part of them, it's a part of you, our experience, our talent helps bring it out. But now they've got something that is uniquely theirs. They were a part of creating it. And we look at dumb things, like things that don't work. Well, if we were to do this over here, this over there, you know, what would happen? And then I'll design it out, and they'll go, boy, you know, that doesn't look so good. I said, you're right. But some of what finding that creative solution, part of what finding that creative solution is understanding what doesn't work so we can identify what does work. So as a result, now you've got something that's outstanding, and there's great stories. So what we help people do is tell their stories, oftentimes with information that's incomplete. You know, they don't understand what it is that's within them yet, but once we can put them in a process, in a situation where they can feel comfortable, you know, being adventurous, now we can start pulling things from that are really going to be unique and uniquely theirs, and now it has great value. So that's kind of our creative process.
Thanks, Mark. Aaron?
Yes. Simple 3 words: research, strategy, and execution. And I can give you an example of how those come to life through a recent project with Patagonia that used all 3 of those. There's a lot of interesting tie-ins to what we've already talked about here, and I'll add to it as I go through this, and it will be hopefully a little bit short. So Patagonia, they have long underwear. They practically invented what's called base layers. Everyone know base layer? We call it long underwear in Minnesota, and we buy a lot of it, by the way, and they like us a lot. So they've got it packaged in what's called a sushi roll. It's a hang tag with 2 rubber bands around it, and it sits in display, and it's kind of somewhat uncomfortable, and it's very efficient. So Patagonia, if you know the brand, it's very environmental, and they don't like to have a lot of extra packaging. And we would have never, ever thought of talking to Patagonia, except it wasn't selling as well. They were losing to a big brand known as Under Armour. You all know Under Armour, right? They were taking share from them at about 10% each year, and it was starting to hurt a lot. And having invented it, right, they were losing ground in a hurry, and they weren't happy about it. But in order to do something about it, they had to find out really what the problem was. They had identified the source of the problem. They figured it was packaging and display because everything else was in line from what they could tell. So they hired us to look at that. We do the research first. We go all over the country, do all kinds of studies. And one of the problems we solved was in Germany, they don't like, this particular store didn't want us in those stores. So instead of sending our researchers in, we sent in people with mobile phones, which they could basically do a research project on their phone and provide us the data back and basically secret shop those stores without them even knowing it, right? So we apply problem solving not only in the bigger part of the process, but in the individual things as we go along within the research itself. And then going into the strategy. Now, here's the part that it gets interesting. People like to talk about creativity, but creativity can be very uncomfortable. It can put you in places where you go, no, I don't want to be in this spot right now, in this room, having you talk to me about this stuff, right? And more than likely, if you feel that feeling and it hits you right about there, it's like, I don't feel good. You're probably in a place where you should be, but you don't want to be. Hopefully, or something else is going on in your life. But in this case, their brand, one of their brand names is Capilene. So it's Patagonia Capilene. And has anyone heard of Capilene before? A couple of people in the room, right? So we study this, and when they came to us, they start to solve the problem. So this happens with us, and I'm sure it happens with you guys as well. Clients, they start to solve the problem. Like, say we're going to have a screen porch, right? They started to solve the problem. We're going to have this is what we're going to do. This is what we think we need to do, right? So they were going to raise the level of Capilene, have it be more prominent. Well, if you think about the word Capilene, it sounds like either a drug or a body part, or a disease, or something like that. Nothing that relates whatsoever to Patagonia. But this is the name they've had for their base layer since they founded it 20-some or 30 or 40 years ago, right? So to even push on that a little bit is uncomfortable for us. Do the research, come back. Guess what? Capilene doesn't mean what you think it does. You shouldn't push it up on the high, you should push it down in the messaging, and you should focus more on other things within it. Patagonia is a powerful brand. You don't want to push that up. And that was uncomfortable for them. There were a lot of other things in that research that were uncomfortable for them, but they took it, and they took it well. They went back, socialized it in their organization, came back with a plan, the strategy. This is where we're going to go forward. And then we go into execution and design concepts and look at possibilities and where things could go. And again, you have to be open to the possibilities of where this could go. The biggest crusher of creativity is negativity, right? Yes. If you get into a situation of people going, no, we can't do that. No, we can't do that. No, 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 no. You have to be able to look at it and go, and we call creative ideas little delicate things, little tiny babies, where you're like, don't hurt the baby, right? Or we refer to them as juggling balls that you keep in the air, right? And keep trying to keep as many in the air, because it's easy to kill creativity. Any moron can kill creativity. Trust me, I've done it myself. So it's possible to kill creativity. You have to keep your mind open to the possibilities and let the ideas move through their proper course, because you'll end up at one at some point in time. And so we did end up at one package, one concept. Turns out, and this got a beautiful presentation, and it's not up on our website yet, so you can't see it there, but it will be soon. Looks like a honeycomb as far as how it displays. We used some of their existing display structures so they didn't have to reuse those or remanufacture those, which was great for them from a sustainability point of view. Took a whole bunch of crap out of the system, extra packaging and all kinds of others, so they actually could have a package at the shelf. Worked out really well from a sustainability point of view, and sales are up, or sell-in is up 40%. So they are giddy, incredibly happy with this, going through this process. And we were the leaders in the team, we weren't the only ones. There were a whole bunch of other people that had to be there, had to play well together, had to be friendly. Actually, they had the two other partners that were involved, had different other roles. They actually were part of bidding on it and didn't get it. So they had to play friendly with the people that got it, which is really funny as well. Fascinating. So that's a bit about our process. Research, strategy, and execution. Simple.
Simple. Not so much. All right. So we, as a group, the five of us, have put together some questions. With that said, this is your event, and if somebody wanted to ask a question either now or later, be happy to work that in. So I'm giving you the free pass here to chime in if you'd like to ask any questions. So anytime you want, let me know. All right. So first thing is, how would you try to define creativity? What would you say is not creative? And maybe we could start with you, Aaron, just from the example of negativity crushing creativity. But anyway, again, defining creativity and what's not creative.
Well, I already mentioned the idea that you know when you're facing creativity when it's uncomfortable, right? And creativity in our world applies to everything. There isn't, just because you have a discipline of an accountant or a lawyer or finance or design or other disciplines doesn't mean you're not creative. It applies in every business. I can tell you the most creative accountants or finance people I've ever seen from the outside were those at Enron, right? Incredibly creative. Gross and not good for the general economy, and probably want to be hunted by a lot of people in the world, but they were definitely creative. So it is, I've also referred to it as tofu. You have to add flavor to it. You have to give it a purpose, a direction when it comes to what are you being creative about. What was the other part of the question?
What's not creative?
What's not creative? Iteration, I find, is not creative. It's got to be a significant enough leap, right? Even though there's really nothing new in the world, right? You're seeing this, and it's this plus this plus this, and then it becomes something new, right? But if it's too close to what it was, if it's a knockoff, if it's like, oh, that looks just like, oh my, it is just like that, right? That's definitely not creative, and rather sad in many cases, right? If you spend a lot of money with trademark attorneys and copyright attorneys and patent attorneys to try to protect or try to, get your idea to be protected against somebody else, then it's probably not that creative, right? You've probably infringed on somebody else's space, right? You might want to push it farther and go places where they wouldn't go.
Great
That
answer.
answers your question.
Anybody else want to chime in on that one?
Yeah, I'll take a stab. Obviously, you guys work in even kind of more solidly in the creative part of the process up front, where Aaron works. I think of creativity, we actually studied Drucker's definition of innovation and creativity. And so when I think of creativity being somewhat of a scientist, physicist type thinking, I think about separation or difference. I mean, a lot about being creative is you're doing something differently than somebody else has done it. And the Enron guys, that's a good fit. I actually had a thing, I looked it up about, creativity can go the wrong way sometimes, and if you don't follow the rules that apply. And then innovation's more all about behavior, right? Creativity and innovation are very different things, and we teach customers that sometimes. All of our designers teach us that. And so if you take creativity as it's being different or doing something different or either solving a different problem or solving a problem differently, the when is it good, when is it bad, a lot of times comes down to have you done it differently just to be different. You asked for examples. I think the first Microsoft Surface and Samsung tablets were just different, right? They didn't do anything creative over what iPad did, right? And the market rewarded them accordingly by not selling any. The iPod, wasn't really that different from other MP3 players as a device. It's a digital music player, but of course they added a much more creative interpretation of the experience, and they got innovation of the revolutionary kind out of it. So, if you think about creativity as like a variance or a difference, and then the good or the bad is that difference something that somebody values. That's kind of the way we like to look at it and manage it. And I really like Aaron's statement about being uncomfortable. And that's a challenge we have. Designers actually look for ambiguity and they look for discomfort. In our organization, we have designers and engineers. Engineers hate discomfort, right? I mean, they just love to stay on track. And so getting them to do things and to think differently, to ask a lot of questions, that's when we can really accomplish a lot in our organization, is when we can get these very rigid problem solvers to be pushed into uncomfortable areas. Because if they get uncomfortable, they're in an area where there's a hard problem, and then then they dig in and solve it, and then we have something really important.
Cool.
So creativity to me is there's the naturally creative person. We all know somebody like this. They just have ideas, and I was talking to somebody earlier today. It's like their brains are popcorn poppers, ideas, and that person's the creative person. And there's somebody at the other end of the spectrum that's seen as not very creative. Well, not very creative. They're still creative. We're human beings. We get up, we figure out how to get through the day. That takes creativity. And so the person who's coming up with the aha moment is like, aha, this is an idea, this is creative, and then they share it with somebody, and then it's either seen as not very creative or not very innovative, or yes, let's take it further. So you could take an example of let's say the door. The door is something we deal with all the time, and I go through the door, and I'm trying to carry something through the door, and I got to open that door and get through the door, and then somewhere along the line, somebody figured out, hey, you know what, before I try to get this stuff through the door, I'm going to take this wad of paper and I'm going to stuff it in that door and I'm going to keep that door open, and then I'm going to go through the door and then I'll pull the wad of paper out and it'll be easier. And what did they do? That was a creative aha moment that invented the doorstop, and that led to the doorstop. And now we have this creative product that's a doorstop, and now I'm a door company. How can I use that and create a creative process around what else could we do with the door? So now all of a sudden we have a problem statement. We have a door. What's wrong with the door? What can we do with the door? And then somebody goes, well, they got this doorstop. What do we need to do anything more with the door? It opens, it closes, it stays open. And then somebody says, well, that doorstop's a pain. I had one, I lost it. And then somebody goes, oh yeah, so that's a problem. And then maybe somebody's jumping to solutions already. Well, yeah, we could put a string on the doorstop and like that. And then somebody else say, well, maybe we could make it attached and fold down. And then somebody says, wait a second, let's get back to the bigger problem. We're a door company. What else is the problem? Let's get into the problem statements. What else does the door do? It swings open and it smashes into the wall. I can't see through the thing. And so you start to list all these things. And now you have a focus point for creativity to happen, really loosely defined. And there's no bad ideas. Aaron said they're like babies that you can nurture. And nobody wants to tell anybody their baby's ugly, right? Well, I think it's okay to say you're maybe not your baby's ugly, but to say your idea has some flaws, as long as you've given everybody permission to be naive, have bad ideas, have good ideas, and then everybody on the team helps come up with a solution to somebody who threw a stone at Aaron's baby, and now we're all trying to come up with a different way to make that okay as a team, and that's creative. And then innovation happens from taking that idea into something that is marketable, relevant, gets return on investment. And I like to, somebody else mentioned, sharing your thoughts. As soon as you get something visual, I mean, I'm talking here and we all can picture these doorknobs, but nobody had the exact same doorknob in their mind. But as soon as I draw the doorknob, at least we're collaborating and focusing around the same image. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to bring a couple of things that could kind of display something. So this is a helmet bag. And it's I think it's a creative helmet bag because you can look at that and go, wow, that's a helmet bag. So that's creative. And how could you make it innovative? That may not sell. So to make it innovative, what's problems with helmets? Well, helmets get dinged and cracked, and that's why we put them in a helmet bag. But they also get really stinky. I'm working out of this. I'm a race car driver. I'm sweating like crazy. I'm a hockey player. My helmet. What could I do? Well, if I could have a panel on the bottom of this, and I could attach this blower to it, I could blow air in here, and I could blow ozonated air in here, and I could kill the bacteria and the stink, and I could have a helmet bag that now turns into a drying feature. So that's how you can turn something creative, and don't stop at just that, and keep going and going until you have something that's really innovative. So I have another example that you think there's a helmet in here, but there's not. There's a basketball. So basketballs, we all know what a basketball is. We have tons of balls in our whole life. There's a problem with this. Does anybody know what the problem with an air-filled ball is? Deflates. It deflates. So when I go to play with it, it's deflated, and I can't bounce the damn thing, or I can't kick it. And so what do I have to do? I have to go find that needle and that pump that I can never find, and I have to pump it up. And so market research for this company called Spalding revealed that was the #1 consumer complaint. They probably paid $50,000 to figure that out, which we just figured out.
Probably 500,000.
Yeah, right. So anyway, so the marketing manager who was sitting around his Thanksgiving dinner table watched the turkey thing go bang, and it popped up. And he said, you could just have this pump and it's in the ball. And so he took that creative thought, that baby, which is a really bad idea because you can't put a pump in a ball, right? But it was a creative baby, and he took it and he failed miserably with it, with traditional engineers and things like that. And then he brought it to us, and we came up with a bunch of different ways. They said, well, it's not about your solution. It's about solving the problem of getting air in the ball, or even keeping the air in the ball. And we brought up other technologies. We love to bring in other technologies and maybe solve that problem. For instance, like if we go back to the doorknob or the door stopper, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, we wouldn't consider as one of the solutions to see who's on the other side of the door other than a peephole and a chain. We wouldn't consider a camera on my smartphone, but we would now. So one of the solutions was, hey, Nike keeps air in their shoes and their soles somehow, and it never leaks. And how do they do that? Well, they do it because it's not air, it's a gas, and the molecules of the gas are bigger than the molecules of the plastic, so it doesn't leak. How about you do that? Well, throw the stone at that baby is, what if it's in Denver? Then the air pressure, and so, okay. So anyway, so what we were able to do is we came up with lots of ideas, and the ultimate solution was, because we're in medical business, we came up with basically a syringe concept, and so you take your thumb, no tool, push it down, and there's a pump. And I can pump it up, and then there's all sorts of realities that take that concept and turn it into an innovation based on the realities of putting that pump inside of a ball. And how do you make it balanced? How does it not have a dead spot? How does it play? And then that made that concept of getting air in a ball dumbed down to where it takes 100 pumps to put a pound in a ball, but still 100 pumps is better than not playing at all. So that's kind of I love this story. This was the most innovative thing to come along in sporting goods for a while. It took a totally upside down company that was owned by a bunch of investors, and it changed the world about how they sold product, and they were able to sell their bad investment to who is it, Rydell, and they took over on it, and from there it went on. So anyway, that's a kind of interesting. What's that?
Nice.
Super Bowl footballs.
Well, actually, we did make a bag that can dry and warm your balls and keep them dry, if your footballs. And it worked great.
So the creative solution that would be, somebody would be so creative that they try to jam a needle in that thing then too, right? Ready?
Well, you can still put a needle in it. But
Oh man, now you got it all. That's good. I like that idea. I see creativity really as discovering. It's a discovery process of really seeing new patterns and new relationships. So as we're thinking about creativity, it's something that's new. It's usually something that's outside of ourselves. It's either hidden within us, ready to come out, or somebody else, an outside force, has to come in and really bring that out from us, and then add to that something that maybe we would never consider, or something that we would never find within ourselves. Yesterday I had a meeting with some clients, and we're going to look at a remodeling plan on their home, and we're asking questions. And they have a large room, and we're going to rework their kitchen, we're going to rework their fireplace area. The fireplace was coming in too far, so we're going to move that outside the building, a very easy solution. But they had a dining room. I said, well, tell me, how often do you use that dining room? And they said, well, like 3 times a year. Well, how often do you use your living room? I'm sure we can probably all answer this question. On special occasions, but not very often. So, and the living room was pretty long. And I said, well, what if we were to put your dining room into your living room? And in your living room, I said, how many people normally sit there? Well, it's usually just 2 or 3 of us, and we're almost always in our family room because that's where everybody ends up when we're entertaining, and that's where our family is. I said, what if we put like a really interesting grouping of furniture around the fireplace? 3 or 4 chairs. Would you use it then? I said, well, I don't know. Well, let me tell you how that might be used. It would be a different type of experience in your home, and you might want to go there when you're reading a book by yourself. Or maybe you want to have a talk with somebody and have it more quiet. But if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. So we got to create some visual connections with this sense of separateness so that each room has its own identity, but you can still see it so you can use it. And let's take that dining room space and turn that into a little sitting area off of your main family room because they didn't have enough seating in that area. So now we can create these new relationships, give them new patterns to think about within their home. And by the end of that meeting, they're going, that sounds pretty good. And then we pursue it. So now they're thinking about how they could be creative with how they could move through their home, how they could use their home, what that would mean relationally to the way that they would exist in their home with their family, with their friends and whatnot. But it's providing them the opportunity to see a solution from a different perspective, and then now they're starting to engage in that, and now that creativity kind of just flows from that. And usually what's going to happen with creativity is you're going to find creativity when you press into a problem or when you press into an opportunity. If we're just going to stay where we're at, are we going to ever really find something creative? We have to press into something. There has to be some force that's put against it. It's either a force that's kind of hidden within us that comes out by whatever means, or it's something that someone presents to us that we go, okay, you know, I see that. Now I can see that. Okay, now you can start moving along a different pathway. So I think it's all about patterns, and it's all about relationships and how that is brought out, you know, through either bringing it on through a process or through an experience. So that's the way I see creativity.
Great, thank you. Anything out here that Mike?
I don't want to prolong your agony here, but something that I deal with because I'm working with large numbers of clients, probably the same way you guys are. One person being innovative is probably pretty good. A team of people being innovative is better. How do you build a culture from a leadership standpoint to foster that? Because I think that you're right on task here. The successful organizations are the ones that do the best job of that. Any tips or suggestions?
Hold on a sec. Was that heard in the back, or you want me to repeat that? Repeating the question, the summary of it would be: can you create a leadership team that fosters a creative environment, and how do you do that? And because if you just have one person, they can't make the whole company be creative. So how do you take that one person and make it a whole team, or can the team kind of pull more people in, or how do they manage that?
I worked with a lot of large companies, small companies, and there's definitely a correlation, and separating innovation from creativity as two completely different things. I think creativity can pop up in all kinds of places. Within any size organization, it's more likely the larger the company, the more likely the innovation or creativity is going to be squashed or killed, because we'd go from leadership and founders and original visionaries for what they're doing to managers or people that are, and that's what their jobs are designed to do. You're supposed to manage, right? You're supposed to manage to something, which is more of a control thing than creativity, where you have to give up control. You have to be okay with ambiguity, which was a very important point earlier. And that's not usually what a corporation's good with, right? Corporation's more about control. And so I've actually proposed that in many large corporations, true innovation doesn't happen inside those organizations. They have to buy it from somebody on the outside, or they have to buy the entity itself, right? And you see innovations, you go, well, they came up with that, right? And Apple has always used it as a good example, but yet really, Apple is iterating on something that's already out there, right? The watch is already out there. And not only is the watch already out there, Pebble is already out there, right? It's pretty damn close to what they've got. Now, we all know, and I love Apple, that they're going to take it a whole nother level farther, but is that true innovation? I don't know. It's hard to say. And whether you need to foster it inside, I think Steve Jobs, if anybody, could have designed an organization to have innovation inside. I would hope he could have done it. But then again, it was him, right? I mean, a lot of people would attribute it back to what he was about. He was the focus group of one, right? He touched it, felt it, and they said, okay, we're going to go with it. They don't have that focus group of one anymore. Where do they go for those types of things? So I like that if there's a debate about that, I'd be fascinated, because it's an interesting thing to look at large organizations versus small, especially when you lose the visionary, because the entrepreneur is the first creative. They're the ones that said, I've got a problem I can solve, and I can get revenue from that. I can make a living off of solving that problem. Nobody else wants to solve it, right? Look at Uber. Talk about something that makes people uncomfortable and angry, too. That's another indication of creativity and innovation. If you're pissing people off, you're probably going down a good path. Until you're going to prison. But so they're talk about an example of innovation, the sharing economy and what they're doing, and Airbnb for hotels. I mean, there's just fascinating things happening in our world now. But they're not coming from big corporations, right? They're coming from entrepreneurs. So maybe that's more the message, is the entrepreneurs, it's not the big organizations.
And it's kind of it's a little bit stealing. Rick had the question for us: Can creativity be abdicated from leadership to groups within an organization? And I think a lot of big organizations believe they can do that, and I don't believe that. I believe, you know, the creativity and the innovation is a cultural thing, and that's kind of what you're saying. And culture starts with the leaders, right? And whatever culture you have, it goes all the way to the top, right? And unless there's a mutiny, and sometimes there's mutinies. But the two things culturally that I would say have to be allowed by leadership is you can't have a fear of failure. And if you have fear of failure, you're then accountable to process. If you're accountable to process, you aren't accountable to the customer. You're not accountable to outcome, and that's classic bureaucracy, of course. But process isn't a bad thing. It's just that if you're accountable to process only, if you don't have the ability to make a mistake, if you don't have the ability to learn from mistakes, you're not going to learn from the creativity fast enough. I think there are organizations that are more creative and innovative than others, big ones that are, it's relative, right? There are more innovative, and clearly Apple is a more relative, largest market cap company in the world, and they're more innovative than others, right? And they're not as innovative as smaller groups of design firms. I think it was Gore, I think, kind of had a policy that anytime they got to 150 people, they'd start another facility because they felt that the creativity would start to wane as a function of the size of the organization. And they've always been very innovative. So I think it's something, I think Rick's question is a good answer to it, is it comes right from the top, and the top has to be aware of it and allow it and facilitate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would just add to that. I think that's the key there is you have to give permission for creativity to happen from the top down, and permission is permission to fail, permission to have bad ideas, permission to be naive, and then you have to give the time, and that's one of the big problems with the bigger the organization. People just don't have the time to commit to it because they are busy putting out fires and taking care of other things that are going to, they're really going to be judged by when it comes time for their review. And then also the acknowledgement that there's got to be acknowledgement that this is happening and people are spending the time, and attaboy, even though you failed, attaboy, at least we're trying to have this culture happen. So I think big firms do come to design firms to then lead innovation and bring innovation and bring a process of innovation in. And so what we've tried to do is it's like trying to pull that away from the team that's established at the company. We say they're legacy burdened, they got a lot of other stuff going on, and they want to do it. They got into their position because they wanted to do innovation. And they were probably pretty good at it at one point, but they got kind of unwired to do it because they're wired to taking care of the daily business, and they're going to lots of meetings, and they're trying to take care of all this other stuff. They just don't have time for it. So what we try to tell them is, okay, so we're gonna bring you in and let you be part of the process. And by the way, the process does have its drudgery. It's not all fun. There is the different phase gates and the different parts of innovation and creativity happening. But we know as consultants, ultimately the client has to take ownership of the idea. And so the sooner we can start saying we, and the sooner we can say that it's as much the client's idea as ours, by embedding those people into the process and letting them be in the definition, being in the ideation, and then checking in and being inspired by the different levels of refinement as we go along. Mm-hmm. They've bought into it early on, and they feel part of it, and they feel good about it. Mm-hmm. And somebody mentioned there has to be love and emotion, and they feel good. They love it. It's their idea, and it's our idea.
Oh, okay, so I try to do a pretty good job of sticking to 1 o'clock stop. We ran a couple minutes long. With that said, one sentence from each of you if you wanted to pull a few things together just to wrap things up.
Starting with me?
Yeah, whoever wants to take it.
Well, we're very fortunate to be in this town where I think there is more creativity and innovation than most. And I've traveled to a lot of different towns that don't seem to have that culturally. It might be because we're stuck inside or because of the snow or the miserable weather, but whatever it is, it's a good thing. And wherever you can embed it into an organization, great, or start your own thing, right? Go out and solve the problem yourself and start it up and go after it. That's what I like to see.
Great, thank you.
I think creativity is our job. If we're not being creative, we'll ultimately become obsolete in everything that we do. And if we miss opportunities when we aren't creative, when we go to the familiar and we go to the known. When we do that, we're following the pack, and you're going to be in the middle, and you're not going to achieve what you could achieve or experience what you could experience. If you're not constantly challenging yourself and being courageous to go out there and look at something new, you're going to end up with less than what you could experience, and ultimately you'll probably be replaced.
I would say, when I was younger, I didn't think of myself as creative. I still don't, relative to some people that I know, but I believe you can get better at it. It's something you can practice. And so I would, if you value it, if you think of yourself as not being creative, I would say go to that uncomfortable place and say, yes, I can be, and there are things that you can do to become creative, and I think everybody is creative. It's just whether or not they really have the confidence to act on it.
Yeah, this is such an interesting topic, and we could sit here for all afternoon and into tomorrow and keep talking about it. But I think some of the key things that were said here is the uncomfort zone, the challenge, and just challenging yourself to look at things differently. Don't follow the status quo, and you will come up with cool things. And the more creative you are, a statement could be made. What does a creative person say when they witness a miracle? And that's not the way I would have done it, but and so if you have that kind of attitude in life, it's a blessing and a curse to be creative, because you're gonna bring it up. You might tell somebody their porch is wrong or something, and they love their, but they, so it's a blessing and a curse. But if you have it, it's gonna make your life more fun, and in all aspects of your life.
All right, thank you. So 2 quick things. Again, April 16th, Internet of Things. That's the St. Mary's University panel that I'm going to be moderating. See me if you're interested. Otherwise, next Club E is May 7th, and that also is the Internet of Things panel. Look forward to seeing you there, and thank you, panelists.